Hello, this is Lori Michelle of Running on Love with God, the weekly program. Today's program is entitled, Who Will Heal Our World of All Its Problems? What Does God Say? I'm here in Israel, and my co-host Anna Marie is in Chicago. Hi, Anna Marie. How are you today? Hello. And I changed my venue so that I could look out over the beautiful Sea of Galilee where I live in Israel. And it looks serene and wonderful, and there doesn't look like there's a problem in the world. But right across the way, I see the Golan Heights, and just this morning, there was mortar fire that fell into Israel, and there's fighting on the other side. Syria and ISIS and all kinds of terror and war is right at my border. There's also problems in further north in Lebanon, and there's lots of saber rattling, if you will, of Hezbollah and Iran trying to rally all the Arab nations to fight the Zionists, which is Israel. So I live in the hotbed where all the problems of all the world seem to be, but there are problems all over the world, and much of the world deludes itself, specifically the United States of America, where I'm from, and you are, Anna Marie, and everybody thinks everything is just wonderful, or, yeah, there's problems over there in the Middle East, but there's always been problems, and there's always been war, and it's the same old, and there's nothing I can do. And so to answer the question, who will heal our world of all its problems? What does God say? He says that we, all the people of the world, are responsible for this mess, and that we are responsible, each individual, to step up and get it right and clean up this mess. It sounds daunting, it sounds impossible, and as an individual, you may say, I didn't create this mess, I can't clean up this mess, I'm going to leave it up to the leadership, the President of the United States, the White House, the government, to clean up this mess. It's not my problem. I'm just going to go to the beach. I'm just going to go to church or synagogue, or if you're Muslim, the mosque. I'm going to pray and let someone else deal with it and leave it up to God. God will step in at some point. Some people believe that God's going to come and show up and clean up this entire mess for us. God says we have to clean up the mess. It will not be done. Peace will not be given. It will be earned. And with that, I will turn the floor over to you to ask questions, Anna Marie, because this is a very deep topic, and we're not talking just about war and terror. We're talking about healing the world, meaning all the problems of all the world.
It's a huge topic, and so it's difficult to really ask questions that are going to get us to any solutions. But one thing I was thinking about, you said it has to start with ourselves. So how is a farmer who's making lots of money growing GMO corn and spraying it with Roundup and selling it to the industrial food companies, how are they going to change? Because they're supporting their family. They're earning good money. And for them to suddenly stop, how does that happen? And how will that impact anything?
Okay, you brought up a very good topic and a problem, one of many. And at the core of these problems that we see in this world, the central common theme is self-centeredness, egotism, and selfishness. And also reaching for idols. Idols meaning something other than God is more important, meaning money. Money has become a god. And in the name of money and wealth, crimes are being committed all over the world. And it's not just the farmers, and it's not just the big corporate America or the big corporations of the world. It's every person, because every single person, Anna Marie, buys into this ideology that money talks and nobody walks. That if it don't make money, it don't make sense. And everybody is after this pursuit of wealth and money to the exclusion of God and love and peace on earth. It's money first. So that's where you have to start.
In my example, all right, in my example, it's about survival. You're feeding your family. How do you, we can't get away from that. We have to earn livings in order to make it.
He just said it's not about survival. It's survival of the fittest. So he just said that. So what does that mean? Survival of the fittest smacks of Darwinism and no God.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's saying, in a very coy way, I suppose, I don't know if that's the right word, he's being funny, or facetious is really the word, because in the end of all of this, we are now, I sound like a broken record, and that makes me old because there are no records, and the sun's coming down, so now I'm getting kind of looking strange, but these are the end of days. At the end of all of this is a decision. We are being judged right now. So survival of the fittest in God's world means those who follow his laws and wake up and get it right will be welcomed in the world to come. And the world to come is a world that we experience a full world healing, where death and sickness is a thing of the history books, God willing. Do I believe in that there will be no death and no cancer and no war? I pray for that. I don't know, truly, Anna Marie, if peace on earth is possible, because I know what is required. And what is required is that we all step up right now and learn how to get it right. And nobody wants to understand right from wrong. They think they have all the answers, or they shrug their shoulders in disbelief. You can't talk to God. Nobody talks to God. God doesn't have a personality. There is no God. There's all kinds of arguments against what I'm putting out there right now. And so the one thing that I know is emphatically true is there is God. He is a he. And when he says survival of the fittest, he's referring to who he sees fit to come into the next world, which means the world to come.
So does that have to happen first, or do we have to clean things up first before we can get to the next world?
This is, right now, the easy part. The easy part meaning, I'm here, wake up, life on earth, and start to do what you are doing with me every week. Listening and learning and asking questions and working on yourself and understanding that you may have been fed, he just corrected me, you have been fed many things in your life that are simply not true. And it's time to learn how to be and how to get it right. So to start on a large scale and worry about farmers who are mass producing food, they are, the farmers, one person, each one of them. If you make them into a force, then it seems overwhelming. How are we going to get all the farmers to comply? We need to start with one. one farmer, one person, one human being at a time, and grow this learning, these conversations on a global scale. Every person needs to do what you are doing right now. Ask questions. The food supply is a major problem where we are being poisoned. And my camera will probably reverse this picture, the text, but I posted this on YouTube and Facebook. Is it reversed? Yes. I will read it. And I said, poison and war are destroying our planet. God says, repair the world or lose everything. And I said, world peace will be earned, not given. But world peace is not only war and terror, which is the biggest and most visible problem, but we're being poisoned, Anna Marie. I read an article just last week. 30% of our world is obese. I know. There is a new statistic that 30% of humanity is obese. Does that not take your breath away? The United States of America, I said in a program a month or two ago about suicide, the number 2 cause of death among young people in America, I believe the ages was 15 to 34, so teenagers and young adults, the number 2 cause of death is suicide. We're in crisis, and people are just shrugging it off and brushing it off like it's dandruff. The world is careening right down, spiraling right down into the abyss. And he says, we are responsible and we must clean up the mess.
You mentioned that you read last week. I read an editorial in the Chicago Tribune yesterday by a man named Ted Gupp. He reported that since the year 2000, 500,000 people have died of drug overdoses in the United States. Then he went on to say that as a nation, we seem fixated on the foreign and the sudden. If the drug fatalities were all suffered in a single 9/11-like attack, we would be consumed. The steady seepage of lives scarcely moves us. And then my question is, do we need a big jolt to wake us up to the problems?
You see the bags, well, it's low res. I cry every night.
Thank goodness.
I cry. He just said, please, do I look like a liar? I know. He just said, it's coming. It's coming.
What, the big jolt?
The big stuff. The big stuff. It's on its way. And there are people in the world who are saying, oh, there's no such thing as God. If there was a benevolent God, there would be no such thing as cancer. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Do you know why there is cancer in the world? We've created it, Anna Marie. Humanity has created it. By not following and obeying the prescription for a blessed life, we are polluting the earth, the beautiful sea that I see right over there. I tell you all the time, I go running every morning, and I run past the water, and there is trash all over the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee. These are things that you don't see in the Department of Tourism pictures for Israel. Trash everywhere. It's unconscionable. And I complain and I cry. to Hashem, you gave us the most magnificent world. The view from here is breathtaking. The views here in Tiberias, Israel, Tiberia, rival any view in all the world. And yet, the people are polluting that very water, the land, that the holy land that Hashem God gave us. And so, if you're anti-Israel or anti-Semitic, you'll say, yeah, sure. Well, that's evil too. To blame any one person or group for all these problems is evil. Evil. It's projection. We did a program about psychological projection. When we feel diminished, when someone feels diminished and being accused of something, they project it onto someone else. And so we see a world spinning out of control and not knowing how to think, behave, or choose. And what's the biggest problem is that if you look around the world, groups of people group together with the same ideology that is perniciously evil, and they get their strength from togetherness and numbers. Well, everybody agrees with us, so we're right and you're wrong. More evil.
I think you just answered one of my questions, which was, is divisiveness another one of the great ills of our world?
Yes, yes. If we cannot have an intellectual debate and talk about everything, put every single thing in humanity on the table and discuss it with reason, and we need to be right, we will implode. We are on the verge of an extinction of humanity. If we continue this way, Anna Marie, there will be nothing left. And I mean nothing.
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. When we lose access to clean water, when all of our food supply is lacking the nutrients that we need, we can't go on.
The fact that 30% of the world is obese should shock everyone. America, I believe in that article, I think I forwarded it to you, was one of the biggest areas of the world that has the most obesity. Now, obesity is not just because you're lazy, but that's part of it. Let's face it, if you don't exercise and eat properly, you're going to gain too much weight. But the food supply that we're eating is poison. And if you're not careful and reading the packaging, you're eating foods that encourage your body to desire more of the foods that are bad for you. They poison your system, and Hashem God has told me this. I don't research this, and correct me because you're very smart and well-read, Anna Marie. But he says these preservatives and chemicals that they put in, he just said retardants, so that they stay on the shelf for 30 years, also inhibit your body from digestion and burning off those calories. And it creates a fat society. Obese is a nice euphemism for fat. People are getting fat. And, you know, I'm not against people who get fat. I'm against people who are getting sick, growing fat. The fat is the problem. The people are choosing the behaviors and they're eating the poisonous foods. And there's no desire not to put these ingredients in the foods. Why? Because it makes you more money. There's more shelf life. I moved to Israel in 2015, and the first thing I recognized was the food tasted delicious. The vegetables had flavor. The eggs, when I cook eggs in the morning and I try to crack the shell, they're hard to crack. And in the beginning, I just came for visits, so I would come here, enjoy the food, and feel how thick the shell was on these eggs. And then I'd go home, and there was not one egg company that I could purchase eggs from in the ShopRite that tasted or felt like anything that I was able to buy in Israel.
You're absolutely right about that. We could have a whole egg conversation because we have spent as much money as we possibly can at the store on eggs, where they say cage-free, organic, natural feed, no antibiotics, and they're still not the same as fresh farm eggs.
Right.
They're just not.
Right. And they don't make the farmers, they don't make as much money. They're not crowding the hens. It's more expensive.
Right. Yeah. But going back to something you said in your introduction, you said that many people are misled to believe that world healing will be brought to us by God. They believe that prayer alone will bring world healing.
Yes.
So my question is, will prayer help at all? Does it have a role?
Yes, of course. The first thing you're to do is to recognize that Hashem God is real, the King of the universe. He desires you to reach for him in prayer. But words alone are meaningless right now. You need to learn what is required of you. If you cheat in business but go to church on Sunday and put 10% in the plate and cheat on your wife, prayer every Sunday isn't going to cut the mustard. I'm making a very obvious example, but there are people who pray every day. If you just pray every day, but you're making mistakes that are causing harm to our world will not heal. Plain and simple.
If someone individually starts leading a better life, how can that change the trajectory of the world?
One person at a time. The change that is required is global. The change that you should be concerned with is personal. You personally cannot change me. You have no power to change your husband. People have to learn how to be on a personal basis with Hashem God and start working on themselves. And also, people who have children must start teaching their children the proper way to reach for God and how to be in this world. There's a lot of bigotry and hatred and helplessness being put into our children. There are children, for example, in Israel, in Gaza, Hamas, the government that runs that area of the world, Gaza, where the Palestinians are, there are films on the internet where they're raising kindergartners to kill Jews. So that's an extreme example, and all Palestinians don't agree with that. But what I'm saying is that we cannot tolerate and accept that. We can't turn a blind eye to that. And so supporting Hamas is supporting that philosophy. And so I also read this morning that England made it legal to boycott Israel, the BDS movement. So what is that stating when they support a divisive measure that not only hurts Israel, but hurts Palestinians who live in Israel and work for companies that are based in Israel? It hurts everyone. It doesn't bring peace. It supports an ideology of divisiveness and hatred and a government in Gaza that is teaching the children hatred and to grow up to kill. So that's very extreme. But let's back off from the extreme and talk about Chicago. We did a program on bullying. The parents in Chicago gathered around in a protest against Donald Trump and made a piñata in his likeness and gave their children sticks to beat the piñata and decapitate it. Kathy Griffin made what she thought was a joke of Donald Trump holding his head like she had decapitated the president. Those parents were not held accountable as far as I know, but they need to hold themselves accountable. This is not the proper way to raise your children. And these are obvious examples, but there are many. We need to come together, and we need to be unafraid to look ourselves squarely in the mirror. And the parents who did that in Chicago look like my neighbors from New Jersey. They look like good, decent, God-loving human beings. We need to be unafraid to look in the mirror and take out the splinter in ourselves. Saying no is like having a splinter in your foot, a problem, and defending it. That's my splinter. If you can't say anything about my splinter. It's perfectly fine. It's in my foot, and I like my splinter. You're just, you know what I'm saying? It's that obvious. These things can be that obvious if you don't become defensive and you don't need to be right about everything.
Are there some people right now who are living good lives? Are there parts of the world where things are more in tune with how they should be? Or is it everyone everywhere needs to change?
Well, everyone in the entire world needs to change. Everyone in the entire world needs to wake up. I saw this past week a video of someone who died and came back about 13 years ago. And he's now a very well-known rabbi. Oh, there we go. I'll finish the thought. He died and came back. And in that experience, he was shown everything he was getting wrong. And he had the unbelievable experience of coming back and getting it right. He cried, he pleaded with Hashem, and he got a second chance. Everybody's not that fortunate. So the answer to your question is everyone. Everyone. This man
except
thought
him.
Nothing was wrong. Okay.
I was going to say everyone except him, because now there's one person getting it right.
Well, he had to die in order to wake up. Because when he described the whole experience, and he said, when you're dead, you know everything. You're given everything. You remember why you even came in the first place. And he thought, is that it? He died in the back of a taxi from a drug overdose of some sort of drug. He was in his 20s. And he was doing a lot of the things that Americans do. A lot of people around the world do all kinds of illegal drugs. You just said 500,000 people in a certain amount of time died of drug overdoses. But in that moment, this rabbi, who's now a rabbi, but then was, like everyone else, said, is that it? This is how I die? This is how they end the story? And he's funny about it, but it's not funny. It was not funny. He's now dedicating his whole life to changing the world and bringing godliness into this world. And what he did, everyone needs to do. There are no exclusions, because in this time right now, Hashem God has told me no one has a pass into the world to come. We have to earn it. And that's what this time is about. So I hope you got something out of this program. It gave you food for thought. Please go to LoriMichelle.net, my website. You can set up a personal appointment with me, one-on-one, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can. And please keep watching these programs and share them. This is the time to get it right. Please don't die to figure out that I'm telling you the truth. We need to work for peace now. God bless you, and may there be peace in our world in our time. God bless you.